I was pleasantly surprised at just how many good movies came out this year. When I first started putting this list together, I was worried I wouldn't have 10 quality films, but as it turned out, I had way more than 10. Deciding which 10 ended up being rough. Oh, anyway, here goes. Number 10, Sinister. A mean-spirited, well-acted, well-directed, well-written horror film for adults that came out of Hollywood? Holy crap, how did this happen? Sinister came out all guns blazing. The opening is an incredibly uncomfortable setup that lets you know right away that this flick means business. Ethan Hawke's downward spiral was fantastic. He did a great job. I was riveted the entire time. A genuinely disturbing and scary movie. Not fake scares, real, unsettling fear. Number 9, Prometheus. Out of all the movies in this list, this is the one I know I'm going to get the most flack for. Definitely a love it or hate it film, and I loved it. I thought it gave a lot of backstory to the space jockeys we saw in the original Alien, as well as open up a ton of new questions. Michael Fassbender was great as David, and Charlize Theron was wonderful as the Cold Vickers. The landscapes they created, as well as many of the other visuals, were some of the best I've ever seen. I think the main problem with the movie is that people went in expecting an alien movie, and instead get a story about creation from both a religious and a scientific point of view. Also, for the people who say they screwed up the continuity with Alien, you need to go back and watch it again. Number 8, Django Unchained. I'm not a fan of Jamie Foxx, but he did an amazing job in this. The story hit all the right notes. It was smart, funny, sad, incredibly violent, altogether a fantastic movie. Christoph Waltz proved once again what an incredible actor he is, and Quentin Tarantino showed he still writes some of the best dialogue in cinema. Oh, and Samuel Jackson was awesome. Number 7, The Avengers, the superhero movie to end all superhero movies. Joss Whedon was able to pull together these characters in a way that never overwhelmed the viewer. Each hero got plenty of character development, and even the villain Loki was fleshed out more than most do. This movie is proof of what happens when you let an incredibly talented writer-director do what they do best with minimal studio interference. Number 6, The Loved Ones. This movie is a prime example that film distributors have no idea what they're doing. Here's an incredibly tense, well-paced, well-written horror film that's for adults, and what do? They stick it on a shelf for years until finally dumping it on home video. This movie deserves to be praised as a horror classic, and most people have never even heard of it. It had some of the most uncomfortable moments I've ever had with a movie, and I mean that in the best possible way. And for the people who have seen the movie and said that the subplot had nothing to do with the film and didn't need to be there, watch it again, only this time, pay attention. Number 5, The Raid, a movie from Indonesia that puts modern American shaky cam action films to shame. The action was swift and brutal, and thanks to them actually holding the camera straight, you can see every brutal, bone-crunching minute of it. Number 4, Safety Not Guaranteed. The idea behind this movie is what first hooked me in. It was based on an ad placed in a newspaper of someone looking for a companion to time travel with. I genuinely enjoyed the film because I had no idea where it was going. They never let on if the guy was for real or if he was just crazy. One of the most refreshingly original movies I've seen in a long time. Number 3, Cabin in the Woods. Another movie that sat on the shelf, this one for about 3 years. Due to the implosion with MGM and them not having any idea how to market the film, it sat on the shelf for about 3 years before they finally released it to theaters. And if not for Chris Hemsworth becoming Thor, there's a possibility it still might be sitting on a shelf. On the surface, the movie looks like a by-the-pictures horror film, and that is exactly what it wants you to think. In reality, it's a brilliant deconstruction of horror movies, and movies in general. Don't watch the trailers, don't read about it, because almost everything out there that's written about it does nothing but spoil the movie. Go in fresh, watch it, enjoy it. Number 2, Dredd. While I did like the Stallone Judge Dredd, this movie is truly the way that Dredd should be portrayed. The only problem I had with the movie was that it made about $1.50 at the box office. Seriously, people? The fucking Katy Perry movie made almost double what this did in theaters. There were a lot of people who didn't like the Stallone version of Dredd, and they said that that was the reason why they didn't go see this version. The Stallone version was 17 years ago. People were expecting this to still be the same kind of movie. I don't think the marketing helped much either, especially with them tacking 3D onto it. Thankfully though, due to word of mouth, the DVD sales were huge, and this movie deserves it. And my number 1 favorite movie of 2012, God Bless America. This movie perfectly encapsulates many of the problems that's wrong with society today and puts them in a wicked black comedy. After seeing World's Greatest Dad, I had a feeling that Bobcat Goldthwait was onto something. The dialogue in this movie was top shelf. The monologues Frank gave about the problems with the world were spot on. The vicious sense of humor this movie had left me howling with laughter. Plus, any movie that flat out mocks the pile of shit that's Diablo Cody wins major points with me. Well, that's my top 10. As I said, this was a tough year, so I have a bunch of honorable mentions. Lovely Molly was terrific. If this was another year, it definitely would have been in my top 10. The Gray was terrific. I liked Silent Hill Revelation. It was nowhere near as good as the first one, but I still thought it was pretty good. I'm sure I'll get some shit for this too, but I did enjoy The Dark Knight Rises. I actually thought it was better than the last movie. Even though the Joker was the better villain, I thought the pacing in this one was much better. It didn't drag like the last one, and I actually really loved the ending. The Innkeepers was another great, very small horror film from Ty West. Jiro Dreams of Sushi is a fantastic documentary. I recommend the hell out of it. If you enjoy documentaries, that one, it's terrific. Looper was really good. Iron Sky was hilarious. Resident Evil Retribution, I liked a lot, but I've enjoyed all the Resident Evil movies. Skyfall, of course. Expendables 2 was a lot of fun. Ted was hilarious. The Pact, oh shit, The Pact. Really good ghost story. Kill List is one of those movies you'd really need to see a couple times before you pull it in. Definitely weird, but if you're looking for something different, yeah, that one fits the bill. Premium Rush was unexpected. I liked that one a lot. American Reunion was a piss. I was so happy they managed to get all the characters back. It was the perfect way for them to end the franchise. Underworld Awakening I thought was good. The Divide was heavy. Very heavy stuff. Miss Bala, wow. That was a good movie. VHS was tough because I loved the premise, but when it started off, the characters were just dicks. Like, I didn't know where they were going with it, and it was another found footage movie, and I thought that was terrible. But then, once they started kind of getting into the stories, some of the stories were stronger than others, of course, but overall, it was a very cool experiment. It was the kind of movie that you definitely can watch a few times, and each time you pull something else away from it. Okay, worst of the year. Battleship, that's an easy one. I did laugh at it a few times, but for a $200 million movie, they should have at least tried to make a movie that was good. And I understand the big, dumb action movie, but you can have a big action movie that's a popcorn movie, but it's Die Hard, or it's Terminator 2, or something like that, where, yes, it's a big explosion fest, or this, that, and the other thing, but there's a solid story that goes along with it, and Battleship was just idiotic. The apparition was so dull. Alex Cross was awful. I wasn't buying Tyler Perry in the lead role, and the shaky cam in this movie was out of control. It seriously was like they said action and then threw the camera. It was abysmal. Matthew Fox just didn't work as a villain. The only thing I liked about it, Ed Burns. Ed Burns is always awesome, but everything else blew. Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. Another movie where the camera was shaking so much and there were so many quick cuts back and forth, and I'd lost interest. After about a half hour, I just was like, I don't give a shit anymore. Visually, I thought that it was better than the first, but the story in this one was stupid, and they did these really dumb, weird moments that almost felt like they were for the trailer. At one point, Nicolas Cage is talking to this kid, and the kid asks him, what happens when Ghost Rider has to pee? And they cut to a behind view of Ghost Rider, and he's peeing fire, of course. There's nothing else around, it's just the graphic of him peeing. And there were a couple of moments like that in the movie, where all of a sudden, there's nothing else around, and it's just Ghost Rider, and he's, like, attacking somebody. Or it almost felt like they were trying to do, like, a fatality sort of thing, like in a video game, where everything else kind of cuts out, and you just see, like, the two characters. And, it sucked. My least favorite movie of the year, hands down, the Total Recall remake. What a pile of shit. Visually, I'll give it to them. They had some very nice visuals. Story-wise, about the first hour, maybe hour 15 minutes of the movie, it was just a carbon copy. They changed little things here and there, but overall, it was just the same goddamn movie. And the director swore up and down that they were adapting more from the book, but they took giant chunks from the movie. There was the girl with the 3 boobs, there was some of the famous lines. It just stunk. It was such a shame because it's like you had all these very good actors, and you have Len Wiseman, who I think is a good director, and a monstrous budget, and they just make this bland retelling of a story of a movie that didn't need to be remade. Remake a shitty movie. Don't take an iconic classic film and try to put your own spin on it if the spin that you're putting on it is the same thing. The only thing that they changed was the whole, instead of them going to Mars, they got into a giant elevator that went to the other side of the planet, and over there it was uninhabitable. And so they were bringing the oxygen over there to fix that part of the world. But the problem with that was they didn't get into that until maybe an hour and a half into the movie. And by the time that it was there, I didn't care. I just wanted them all to die. It just sucked. Kate Beckinsale, as much as I liked seeing her play a villain, could not save this movie. Stunk. So that's my favorite and my least favorite of the year. Remember, this is just my opinion. If you disagree with me on any of these, that's fine. My like or dislike of any of these doesn't impede your like or dislike of any of these. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.